Margaret Foster had been greeting customers at the Bentonville Walmart for 15 years. Every morning at 6:45, she'd pull into the same parking spot, adjust her blue vest in the rearview mirror, and pin on the yellow, smiley face button that had faded to cream. "Welcome to Walmart," she'd say 800 times a day. "Have a blessed morning. Welcome to Unseen Heroes." Before we begin this story of patience, observation, and the instincts that never retire, tell us where you're watching from in the comments. And if you believe some guardians wear blue vests instead of blue uniforms, hit that subscribe button. The regulars knew her routine. Margaret stood at the entrance from 7 to 3, only sat during her 15-minute breaks, and remembered every face that passed through those automatic doors. The young cashiers called her Grandma Maggie. The managers appreciated her reliability. The customers barely noticed her at all, which was exactly how she preferred it. That Tuesday started like any other. The morning rush of contractors grabbing supplies, mothers wrestling toddlers into carts, teenagers buying energy drinks before school. Margaret greeted them all, her voice warm and steady, her eyes doing what they'd done for 25 years at the FBI, watching, cataloging, remembering. At 8:17, the Morrison family walked in. She'd seen them before. Father, mother, and their daughter, maybe 7, maybe 8. The girl always walked 2 steps behind, always kept her head down, always wore long sleeves, even in Arkansas summer heat. The father, broad-shouldered with calloused hands, never made eye contact. The mother smiled too much, laughed too loud, filled every silence with nervous chatter. "Morning, folks," Margaret said, same as always. "Finding everything okay?" The father grunted. The mother chirped something about school supplies. But the girl, Emma, Margaret had heard her called, looked up for just a moment. Their eyes met, and in that fraction of a second, Margaret saw something that made her spine straighten the way it hadn't in 15 years. Fear, not the kind children have of strangers or storms. The kind that lives in the bones. The kind that knows what's coming because it's come before. Margaret kept smiling, kept her voice light. But as the family disappeared into the store, she pulled out the small notebook she kept in her vest pocket. The same kind she'd carried for a quarter-century at the bureau. Black, spiral-bound, unremarkable. Tuesday, August 15th, 8:17 a.m. Morrison family. Emma, long sleeves, favoring left arm. Fresh, bruising visible at wrist when sleeve shifted. Mother overcompensating. Father aggressive body language. For the next 2 weeks, Margaret documented everything. The Morrisons came in every Tuesday and Friday. Always early morning. Always bought the same things, groceries, beer, occasionally children's Tylenol. Emma's sleeve stayed long. Her silence stayed complete. The bruises, when Margaret caught glimpses, stayed fresh. On the 3rd Tuesday, Margaret tried something different. "Morning, sweetie," she said directly to Emma as the family entered. "Don't you look pretty today?" The father's hand tightened on his daughter's shoulder. The mother's smile flickered. But Emma looked up again, and this time, Margaret saw more than fear. She saw recognition. The child knew Margaret was seeing her, really seeing her. "Say thank you to the nice lady," the mother prompted, voice pitched too high. Emma's lips moved. No sound came out, but Margaret could read the shape of the words. "Help me." That night, Margaret sat in her one-bedroom apartment, laptop open, fingers hovering over keys she hadn't touched in years. The FBI database would have flagged her credentials as retired. Child Protective Services had protocols, procedures, bureaucracy. By the time they investigated, by the time they filed paperwork, by the time they scheduled a visit, she closed the laptop. Some things couldn't wait for proper channels. Margaret had worked crimes against children for 25 years. Started in 1978, when the unit was new and overwhelmed and underfunded. Seen things that rewired a person's understanding of evil. Saved hundreds of children. Lost them too. The ones she lost were why she'd finally walked away. There was one case in particular. Baltimore, 2007. A girl named Lily, same age as Emma. Same hollow eyes. Same long sleeves. Margaret had followed procedure, filed the reports, trusted the system. The system moved too slow. Lily didn't make it. At Lily's funeral, standing in the back where the cameras couldn't see her, Margaret made a decision. She'd given the Bureau everything: her youth, her marriage, her faith in human goodness. She couldn't give them any more of her soul. So she retired, moved to Arkansas where her sister lived, took a job where she could smile at people and go home without nightmares, where she could pretend the monsters she'd hunted for decades didn't shop for groceries and school supplies like everyone else. Except they did. And now one of them was hurting a child named Emma. Margaret pulled out a different notebook. This one was older, leather-bound, filled with names and numbers from another life. She found the one she needed. Sarah Chun, former colleague, now running a nonprofit that worked outside official channels when children were in immediate danger. She dialed. The voice that answered was older, but familiar. Margaret? Jesus, it's been what, 10 years? 15. I need your help, Sarah. You're retired. So are you. Didn't stop you from starting Second Chance. A pause. What do you have? Family in Bentonville. Father's abusing the daughter. I've got 2 weeks of observations, pattern documentation. But Sarah, this one's going to escalate. Soon. How do you know? Margaret closed her eyes. Because I've seen it before. The controlled public violence, the mother's complicity, the child's trained silence. He's building to something. The signs are all there. Friday morning arrived gray and humid. Margaret took her position at 6:55, 5 minutes early. The notebook in her pocket had 2 new entries from her overnight research. Tom Morrison had 3 domestic violence calls in Oklahoma before moving to Arkansas. His wife Claire had been hospitalized twice for falls. Emma had missed 47 days of school last year. At 8:09, earlier than usual, she saw them crossing the parking lot. Tom walked faster than normal, jaw set, fists clenched. Claire hurried to keep up, pulling Emma along. The child was limping. Margaret's hand went to her phone. Sarah's extraction team was on standby, sitting in a van 2 blocks away. One word from Margaret and they'd move. But they needed probable cause, something that would hold up later. Something more than long sleeves and frightened eyes. The automatic doors swooshed open. Tom entered first, not waiting for his family. Claire followed, Emma's wrist gripped tight in her hand. And that's when Margaret saw it. Blood. A small spot on the back of Emma's pink shirt, spreading slowly. "Welcome to Walmart," Margaret said, her voice steady even as her pulse spiked. "Oh, honey, looks like you've got something on your shirt there." Claire's face went white. Tom turned back, eyes narrowing. "She's fine. Just trying to help," Margaret said, stepping slightly forward. "We've got paper towels right here if you need." "I said she's fine." Tom's voice dropped to a growl. "Mind your own business, old woman." Old woman. The dismissal might have worked on someone else. Someone who hadn't spent decades reading violent men like textbooks. Someone who didn't recognize the pre-violence tension in his shoulders, the way his weight shifted to the balls of his feet. "Of course, sir," Margaret said, stepping back. "You folks have a good morning now." They moved past her into the store. Margaret waited exactly 10 seconds, then pressed the speed dial on her phone. "She's bleeding," she said quietly. "Fresh injury, probably from this morning. They're in the store now." "That's enough for intervention," Sarah's voice came back. "But Margaret, if we move in the store, it could go bad fast. A lot of people around." Margaret watched through the glass doors as the family turned toward the pharmacy section. Her mind calculated angles, distances, witnesses. Then she saw something that changed everything. Tom had left Claire and Emma by the pharmacy counter and was walking back toward the exit. Alone, moving with purpose. "He's separating from them," Margaret reported, coming back toward the entrance. But Margaret knew better. She recognized the look on his face. The same look she'd seen on suspects who decided they were done running. Who decided if they were going down, they weren't going alone. "Sarah," she said quietly, "I think he's made a decision. I think today's the day." Margaret had 4 seconds to decide. Follow protocol and wait for the team, or trust instincts honed over 25 years. She thought of Lily, of procedures followed too carefully, of funerals attended too late. She stepped outside. Tom was at his truck, driver's door open, reaching under the seat. His movements were quick, agitated. When he straightened, Margaret saw the grip of a handgun tucking into his waistband. "Sir," she called out, voice carrying the authority she'd buried for 15 years. "Tom Morrison?" He spun, face flushing. What do you know my name? I make it my business to know the names of people who hurt children." The parking lot seemed to pause. A customer pushing a cart stopped mid-step. A car pulling in slowed. Tom's hand drifted toward his waistband. "You don't know anything," he said. "I know Emma had perfect attendance until you moved here. I know Claire's medical records from Oklahoma. I know you're escalating, and I know today's the day you've decided to end it." His face went through several expressions: surprise, rage, and finally a terrible kind of calm. "You're just a greeter." I was. Margaret reached slowly in her vest, pulled out something she'd carried every day for 15 years but never shown. A leather wallet, worn soft with age. She flipped it open. The FBI credentials were retired, the badge dull, but Tom Morrison didn't know that. All he saw was the weight of federal authority he'd thought he'd escaped. "Agent Margaret Foster," she said, the title feeling strange and right on her tongue. "And you're going to put your hands where I can see them." Tom laughed, bitter and short. "You're old. You're alone. You think that badge means anything now. I think it means I've done this before. I think it means I know exactly where your hand is going and how long it'll take you to draw. I think it means I've already called this in, and right now, there are people moving to protect your daughter." His hand moved. Not fast. He wasn't trained. Margaret was. Even at 74, even with 15 years of soft living, muscle memory was still memory. Her hand found the pepper spray on her keychain. Walmart security had insisted she carry it. The stream caught Tom full in the face just as his fingers wrapped around the gun grip. He screamed, stumbled backward, the weapon clattering across the asphalt. Margaret kicked it away, then planted her foot on his back as he fell to his knees, clawing at his eyes. "Stay down," she said calmly. Then, louder to the gathering crowd, "Someone call 911. Tell them we need police and an ambulance. And someone please go to the pharmacy and keep a mother and daughter there until police arrive. Don't alarm them. Just keep them safe." The police arrived in 3 minutes. Sarah's team in 4. CPS in 10. By the time they sorted through everything, took statements, processed the scene, it was nearly noon. Margaret sat on a bench outside the store, blue vest still neat, smiley face button still pinned straight, watching the circus she'd created. Detective Williams, Bentonville PD, sat down beside her. He was young, maybe 30, with the eager intensity of someone who still believed justice was simple. "Hell of a thing," he said. "The pharmacy security footage shows the mother actually smiled when we told her Tom was in custody, like she'd been waiting for someone to stop him." "She was trapped too," Margaret said. "Different kind of victim. The girl, Emma, she's at the hospital. Cigarette burns on her back, fresh ones. Doctor says there's evidence of years of abuse." Margaret closed her eyes. "But she's safe now, thanks to you. Though I have to ask." He pulled out a notebook. "You told Morrison you were FBI. That badge you showed him. Retired," Margaret said. 15 years. Still, impersonating a federal agent is a crime when done for personal gain or to deceive the public. "I identified myself as retired Agent Foster, which is accurate. I showed retired credentials, which is legal. And I did so to prevent imminent harm to a child." She smiled slightly. "I may be old, detective, but I still know the law." The story made the news, of course. Grandmother greeter stops, armed abuser. Former FBI agent saves child at Walmart. Hidden hero in blue vest. Margaret declined all interview requests. She had floors to walk, people to greet, children to watch. But things changed after that day. The young mothers shopping alone with their children started nodding to her, some inner radar recognizing a protector. The store managers quietly expanded her authority, giving her access to security feeds and discretion to act on her instincts. And every Tuesday and Friday, a car would pull up outside Walmart. Claire Morrison, divorced now, in therapy, rebuilding, would walk in with Emma. The girl's sleeves were short now, her arms unmarked. She'd run ahead of her mother, straight to Margaret. "Hi, Miss Maggie. Hi, sweetness. Don't you look beautiful today?" And Emma would smile, really smile, before skipping into the store. 3 years later, on a Thursday evening, Margaret's phone rang. Unknown number, but something made her answer. "Is this Margaret Foster?" The voice was young, Female, nervous. Who's asking? My name is Emma Morrison. Well, Emma Chin now. I don't know if you remember me. I remember you, sweetheart. Margaret muted the TV. How are you? I'm 22 now. In college, pre-law. I wanted to thank you and to tell you something. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. But that's not why I'm calling. I'm calling because I wanted you to know I'm applying to the FBI, to the Crimes Against Children Division. I want to do what you did. Save kids like you saved me. Margaret was quiet for a long moment. That's a hard road, Emma. You'll see things that don't wash off. I know, but someone has to see them. Someone has to stand watch. You taught me that. I was just a Walmart greeter. Emma laughed, soft and knowing. No, Miss Maggie, you were never just anything. After they hung up, Margaret sat in the dark for a while. Thought about cycles and patterns. About watchers training new watchers. About Emma Morrison becoming Agent Chun, standing between predators and prey. The next morning, she arrived at Walmart at 6:45, same as always. Pinned on her button, straightened her vest, took her position. The automatic doors whooshed open, bringing in the morning rush. Welcome to Walmart, she said, voice warm, eyes watchful. Have a blessed morning. Because that's what heroes do. They show up. They stand watch. They pay attention. And they train the next generation to do the same. Even if they do it all while wearing a blue vest and a faded smiley face button. Margaret Foster, Walmart greeter. FBI retired. Guardian always. Still watching. Still protecting. Still here. If you know someone like Margaret, a quiet guardian who watches over others without recognition, tell their story in the comments. Share this video to honor those who protect from the shadows. And remember, heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear name tags. Thank you for watching Unseen Heroes. Subscribe for more stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Until next time, stay watchful. Someone out there is counting on it.